Hey everyone, Brian from All Day Ruckoff here, and today I've got an awesome interview for you with Cadre Dan from GORUCK. We talk about the 75th anniversary of D-Day events that he led over in Normandy. It's really fun having him on for this one because Dan loves history, and in addition, he's also run events over there in previous years. So we do some comparing and contrasting between this year's events and events from previous years. I feel really fortunate to have him back on, and I am sure you're going to enjoy this interview. We wanted to record this shortly after the D-Day events occurred, so everything was still fresh in our minds, and well enough in advance that if you want to plan out your 2020 schedule, depending on when GORUCK adds the D-Day events to their calendar, you might be looking into making a trip over there. We'll see. Either way, I want to thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast, episode number 109. Thank you so much again for tuning in and listening. Huge shout out to everyone who supports on Patreon. You can find more information about that or how to support the All Day Ruckoff podcast in the show notes. And here is the interview with Cadre Dan.
We've done different variations of events at Normandy. So we've done like just a tough, and then we've done like tough light, and then we did, we had a couple years we did HTLs. That's where I was involved. And then we had the 2 years in between that we ran like, tough lights. But with this year for the 75th anniversary, we really wanted to put some bandwidth against this event and really come up with something different and look at things from a different perspective on having the event. So like one of the key takeaways from, participant feedback was like, hey man, like, hey, Normandy's awesome. Doing events here are awesome, but I like to see more stuff, during the day. And like when you run, like if you look at how we run an HTL in the United States, right? And then you put that construct on running it in Normandy, right? So the tough would have started at like 9, 10 o'clock, and it would have finished at 9, 10 in the morning. So you're really only getting like a couple hours of daylight, for the tough class in Normandy. So what we were one of the years after the HTL, like me and the cadre, we sat down and we were like, okay, how could we do an HTL? And we were like dead set on having an HTL ran. And we were like, okay, and we had to kind of figure it out. Like if we started at this certain time, that would be the most bang for our buck for daylight. But even that, I mean, it just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong, the HTLs we ran there were great and everything like that. But like, if you were coming to Normandy and all you wanted to do was the tough, then, you're like 3 hours of that is going to be a daylight. And it doesn't get the same effect when you're like, trying to explain things at Normandy when it's all dark and everything like that. So this year we went with a totally different scheme on how we do it. And I got to say, like, out of all the years, the other 2 years that I've done HTLs at Normandy, I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think the way we structured the events on the days and how we planned it out with the star course, the two toughs and the integrated light, I think that was the way to go. I think that was absolutely the best way to go. And I told the other cadre that were there, I'm like, this was it right here. This is the construct for this Normandy event.
And it seemed like the rest of the cadre agreed that it worked a lot better.
Oh yeah, because like, so the cool thing is about this Normandy event is like, and I'm not trying to talk smack on my other cadre brethren or anything like that, but like GORUCK assembled like the 18 cadre, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn and pat myself on the back and everything like that, but that was like an internal joke between the other cadre there. So you had me, obviously, you had Heath. The great thing about Heath was like Heath's been there a couple times before, so right off the bat you had two of us that had been to Normandy and ran events at Normandy and had a real good understanding of like everything that went on with at Normandy, as well as like routes and places to go, and like we went to that place one year, didn't really get a whole lot out of it. Oh, we went to this place that year, that was awesome. Let's go back there. You know what I mean? And then we had DS, man, and like the first time I met DS, even though he's in the area here, Bragg, and I've talked to him on the phone, but the first time I met him was over in France. So that was awesome. And I mean, he's a solid dude. We had Ragnar. I mean, he's another solid cadre, Mocha. I've ran events with Mocha over there too. So we more continuity with cadre that have been over there. And then, I would count Jason as cadre, but he goes rogue a lot. So he does Jason things over there, which is great. So, we had some phenomenal. We had a lot of continuity for this year. You know what I mean? We didn't have like 5 cherry cadres that have never been in Normandy that are so starstruck about just being in Normandy. They're like, "Wow, this is great." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we got to run events." You know what I mean? So we were able to come up with a really good route and a really good plan, because we had a lot of restrictions that we had to deal with it being the 75th anniversary.
I can imagine there was a lot planned over there for that, that weekend. So a lot to work around and make sure that your groups are moving around and not, I guess, encroaching on.
Oh yeah, I mean so this year was okay, so it's the 75th anniversary of D-Day, right? And I've been to Normandy in my life, counting this time. I've been to Normandy 4 times, and I have never seen the amount of people and traffic that were there this year than any other years. I mean, it was insane, the amount of traffic and everything like that. So not only do you have like tour buses full of tourists driving around and checking things out, right? You got a lot of locals in the area that come out and go to all the events and everything. Throw in there that the U.S. military, every year for Normandy, or every year, for the D-Day events, they always have like a ton of U.S. military goes over there. They're either jumping or they're on the beaches or whatever. And this year, like, there was just the most U.S. military in uniform I've ever seen in one area overseas. Like, it's not near a U.S. military installation. And then you throw in the reenactors, which, I mean, these guys crack me up. So you got these guys that they dress up, circa 1944, U.S. Army uniform or paratrooper, and they have like the Jeeps, the deuce and a halves, the 5 tons, and I mean, the women get dressed up like circa that dress, during that time frame and everything. And these guys, like, pretty much I'm pretty sure what they do is all they do is drink and drive around. Not and when I mean that, I mean, like, they usually have a designated driver or whatever, but like, these guys would be in there freaking having a good old time, just driving around to the different sites over in Normandy. Because I mean, the actual D-Day battlefield, when you count all the beaches, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge area to cover. These reenactors are driving all around, checking everything out. You know what I mean? They got their Jeeps out. Maybe that's the only time they drive their Jeeps every year, and they like camp at certain locations and stuff like that. So like, it's just like a totally different feel for an event when you go there. It almost like transforms you back to that area, not only because you have the reenactors, but like the area still predominantly looks the same as it looked back then in 1944, obviously minus the beaches. When I mean the beaches, I mean they still have the pillboxes. Some of the fighting positions are still there, but I mean, they don't have the the obstacles on the beach and everything like that, and I mean, it really does transform you back to that time when you're there. It's really cool.
It sounds like just an amazing experience to be part of. So, stepping back for a second, how did you throw your name in to go out there a couple of years ago and come back year over year? I mean, that must have been pretty exciting to do.
Yeah, so it just worked out with my work schedule that I think the first time I went to do an HTL there, I mean, it worked out perfectly because I was going TDY into Germany, and I was going to be there. One of the years I went, I think it was the year I think 2016 when I went. Okay, so 2015 I went there. Here I went to Germany for TDY. It just so happened with some training events and everything like that. That when I was on a team that we were taking leave during that time frame and everything like that. So basically what I did was me and my wife, like our thing for going on vacations is go to Europe. That to me is like, for both of us, I mean, that's our thing. Like when we go on our vacations without the kids, we go to Europe. Some people go on cruises. That's awesome. Some people go to all-inclusive resorts and beaches and islands and stuff like that. That stuff's, I mean, we've done that stuff and it's fun, but like me and my smoking hot wife, we like to go to Europe and we like to see old shit. So that's what we do. Anyway, so that year we ended up doing like a 7-day tour in like Spain, Portugal, via bus. And then once we got done with that, flew up to Normandy, and then we linked up with the other cadre there, and then my wife stayed with us at the team house, and one of the other cadre, Montreal, aka Sarkis, he brought his wife too, and they did kind of the same thing. They did like a European cruise down in the Mediterranean, and yeah, man, we met up in Normandy, and then we started going through the event, and then the next year following it again, that's back to the Germany TDY. I was going to be in Germany for like 6 months, and it just so happens I had to report like over there like 7th or 8th of June or something like that. So I was like, well, before I go over there for 6 months, I'm gonna go and try and get on these Normandy events, and it worked out. And I said this after that last Normandy event. I was like, look, man, I've done this Normandy event for 2 years in a row. I feel kind of bad because I'm kind of Bogart in the Normandy slots for cadre, and I was like, so I'm not going to come back for a while. So I didn't go back for like the next 2 years, and then obviously with this year being the 75th anniversary, back in I think it was probably around December. I talked it over with my wife, and I was like, babe, this is 75th anniversary. I was like, there's not going to be too many more veterans. There's not that many veterans, unfortunately, that were there. Every year we lose more and more. I was like, it's the 75th anniversary. I got to go. So she was like, yeah, no problem. So I emailed GORUCK, and I was like, hey, I'm going to cash in every chip that I've got to come on as cadre for this event. And I was like, this is what I bring to the table. And I was like, I've been there a couple times. I ran HTLs there, and headquarters was like, yeah, man, you're on. Good job. It was almost as simple as that. You know what I mean? But I was going there for, a good 6 months prior to going there and running the events.
Yeah. So it sounds like that first time, I mean, that worked out really, really well for you since you're over there already. You could just kind of leap over there, run the events, and kind of attach yourself to that. So then this time around, you've got all the experience. You've done it multiple times, and that's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out perfectly. And I mean, half the battle, man, is the airfare getting over there.
Right.
It's not cheap. I literally that's like the hard part. You know what I mean? Because like, if we have 150 people signed up for that, we need XX amount of cadre. But it's not like here, where it's like, okay, I'm running an event in Nashville or whatever, and it's only like a couple hour flight. And the numbers start dropping off when we start dropping off cadre. You got to buy plane tickets to go over there like months in advance because, obviously they get more and more, like a lot more expensive. So GORUCK incurs a lot of risk in like, locking down cadre and then like, letting us know they're like, hey, let's go, get tickets. We're locked in with some numbers and everything like that, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely some expensive airfare. So I'm glad it all worked out. I mean, they didn't have to pay the first time, and you got to go for this time. So
yeah,
that's great. So this time around, it was the 75th anniversary, and we briefly touched on it at the beginning, but it sounds like the lineup of events changed quite a bit. I mean, GORUCK's been big on the Star Course this year, so they brought the Star Course out there, and I'm really curious on feedback from that event because, like you mentioned, people wanted to see more of the sights, they wanted to see more of the city, and when you're doing an HTL, I mean, half the heavies at night, 90% of the tough is at night. You know, the people out there doing the HTL are probably pretty out of it for the light, so they're not enjoying the
Yeah.
sights too much there. But I'd imagine that with the Star Course, you would get a bit more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we focused for the star course, right? So like a normal star course, right? The route is like ideally it's a star. Okay, that's the hence the star course and everything like that. And then like yeah, you have to take into consideration that I have never ran a star course or been a part of a star course until I went to Normandy and everything. Okay, so we didn't using that construct of a star, right, is not going to work in Normandy because, like I said, the battlefield, and I'm just, let's just talk about Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, right? There is a giant estuary between Utah and Omaha Beach, so you have to go around that, and there's only like a couple bridges that go around that. So in order to see everything, right, we couldn't necessarily do a star. So it was more like it was pretty straight line. We had waypoints on there, and like we knew exactly the route because we recon the entire route, and then we were going back and forth on a Google Map recon prior to even pushing that or even recon the route on the ground. But pretty much, man, you started at Utah Beach and you went around, checked out a couple places around that area, dropped down into Carrington, and then you went around the estuary, and then you went up to like Point Du Hoc, and then you continued over to Omaha Beach and finished. I mean that's at its baseline core. And when you map that out, that's about the fastest way that you could possibly do it. Straight line. When I mean straight line, I mean like obviously connecting those dots of the places that I just said. It's like 50 miles. You know what I mean? But the cool thing is that when we mapped out the star course, you really got to see some really cool stuff along the route and everything like that. And then the other cool thing too is like you actually got you actually got to see some other things that maybe if you took like a bus tour or you took like a Normandy tour that you wouldn't necessarily see, because the best way to see Normandy is on foot. You know what I mean? And walking the area, and not just the beaches, but like the one of the places we had the participants go was the German War cemetery. So this is a giant cemetery that has the German soldiers that were killed in that area buried and everything like that. A lot of bus tours don't go to that. You know what I mean? They're focused on going to Utah Beach and Omaha Beach, and then maybe hitting St. Mary Glees for where the 82nd took down over by Utah Beach and everything like that. So there's a couple places that we drove the route to go through with waypoints so that the participants could see things that they probably wouldn't see if they went on a like a bus tour or anything like that. So we started. I think we started at like 9:00 at night. And it was kind of a really cool feel because like the Continental Peninsula where Utah Beach is, where St. Mary Glees is, and the drop zones and everything like that, those guys were walking through that at night, which is exactly how it looked exactly like how the paratroopers that landed at 01 or midnight 01 on D-Day, how it looked and everything like that. So, and then and then they maneuvered through, and then there some of the teams were hitting like pretty close to Point Du Hoc and Omaha Beach, at like 6, 7, 8 in the morning, and that's obviously the time that the Allied forces were storming the beaches and everything like that. So it had a really cool feel to it. As far as the route, there's a lot of pluses to that route, and I got quite the education on star courses and some good lessons learned from the master of the star course, which is Mocha. he really you know, threw out a lot of good information, and it was really good to see like how he ran the star course, and talking to the couple of the other cadre during, in between the stops on running the star course and everything like that. I mean, it was just great.
Yeah, Mocha's run a lot of those events, so it must have been kind of nice having him over there to get some of those tips and pieces of info from.
Yeah, like running a star course is completely transparent to me and everything like that. Like I didn't have a clue. I was like, oh yeah, you meet a bunch of people, you give them a map and waypoints, and like they walk out and they check in on Instagram like that, and then they finish. And then Mocha started laughing. He was like, "Yeah, it's the gist of it, but let me tell you how this goes." And he between him and Heath, man. Now Heath's run a bunch too, and both those guys are like, just like fire hosing me with information, and the other cadre about running the star course and everything like that. And that was phenomenal to see, that area. Driving around that area, it's just a bonus in itself. But then, running the star course and then being, taught by, the guy that came up with it and everything like that on the execution of it, the execution aspect was pretty awesome.
So that was the first Star Course you were part of running, you mentioned. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts on the Star Course in general? Are you a fan of the event?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I mean, minus, when Jason threw out his vision for the Star Course and everything like that, I was like, it's funny because it's like one of those aha moments. So, and I was like, why the fuck haven't we been doing this for years? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Why haven't we been doing this for years? You know what I mean? It was just funny. And I'm 100% on board with these star courses. I think they're freaking phenomenal. I mean, it definitely, it's a whole, it ain't a heavy, it ain't an HTL, it ain't a tough. It's a whole different animal when, you got a team and you're walking 50 freaking miles, and hitting waypoints and, making sure you're hydrated and everything like that. And you're all alone and unafraid with your team out there in the hinterland. You know what I mean? You don't have, necessarily cadre supervision and, a cadre up your ass looking at this, that, and the other thing and critiquing and then stopping you and everything like that. It's on you and it's on your teammates, so you have to, now I talked about this earlier with the heavies, like you got to have the personal responsibility to put the miles in ruck in order to be able to do these star courses. Because 50 miles, it looks great on paper until you throw on your Mac V1s and your rucker with your plate and you start walking and you're like, man, route selection, that was something I probably should have spent a little bit more time for. You know what I mean? Like, man, oh, I made a boneheaded mistake. I just walked an extra 5 miles. That adds up. And it was just like, it's such a cool event. And I think it's a great idea. And then, now we got, not just the 50 milers, you got the marathon, the 26.2, the 12 milers. So if you're like, yeah, man, I'm not necessarily cool on that 50 miler. Maybe I should see how I'm doing on a 12 miler. Yeah, we do 12 milers in the heavy. Got it. Great. But you could jump in and do you could do a marathon ruck, that sucks. And then you do the 50 miler. Yeah, that really sucks. It's a great progression. It's a great event. It's a great idea. And I just when I think about it, I just crack up. I'm like, why the hell didn't we do this years ago? I mean, I wasn't smart enough to come up with it. That's what Jason's for. It comes up with these genius ideas and we execute them. So it was great.
And it seems like Normandy was a perfect place to have it. I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, the tour buses, they drive by, they hit all these spots, but I mean, when they're on the road driving, you're missing a lot of stuff. And so getting out there, putting the miles in underfoot, I'm sure you saw a lot of things that the people on those, tour buses didn't see.
Yeah, because I did the first time I ever went to Normandy. So when I was stationed in Germany back in 2005 and 2006, like me and my wife, we made a list, and it was like top places we want to go, and Normandy was like I'm pretty sure Normandy was either number one or number two, and so found us a bus. I mean, there's bus tours all over Europe. It's not hard to find. Google works wonders. And we found a tour that went to Normandy. I'm pretty sure it went to it hit the battlefields of Normandy. It hit like one of the British beaches. I think it was Juno. I can't remember. I mean, it was so long ago, but we hit there, and then we hit like I remember going to Omaha Beach, and I remember going to Point du Hoc. I remember going to St. Mary Glees. I remember going to Utah Beach. And then we went to St. Mont Michel, which is a monastery that sits on this giant like island that gets like, because the tide comes in, the water completely surrounds it, and so that was pretty cool. And then I remember we also went to Rowan, and that's where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake and everything. And Rowan's a pretty it's a beautiful town. So I mean, there was a lot of different stuff, but like what sucked was like you got on the bus, right? You got on the bus, you get off the bus down at Omaha Beach, right? And the cool thing was the tour guide. Tour guide was like, hey, this is where we're at. This is what happened. Okay, everybody's looking cool. All right, get back on the bus. Drive to the next spot. I was like, all right, this was, you know what I mean? It was rushed, And the cool thing with the Star Course is like, you have a set time limit. You know the places you're going to and everything like that, and you could stop and just like, just kind of hang out for a little bit of time and just enjoy being where you're at. You know what I mean? And the only person rushing you is you and your teammates. You know what I mean? Not, a tour bus of 80 civilians or whatever, and everybody moves really slow to get on the bus, and then it just amplifies throughout the tour.
I mean, you'd have a real Star Course for yourself if you missed that tour bus because you were spending an extra 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend the tour bus. I do, and I know I don't want to come off like too negative on the tour buses because, like, I mean, I've seen plenty of Europe in a tour bus, and it's a great way to do it and everything. But like, and I even told the participants throughout the event and everything like that. I'm like, hey man, yeah, so because some of them did all the events, and that's awesome. You know what I mean? And I was like, hey, maybe you want to come back and get on a tour and get a different perspective from a verified tour guide that's what he gets paid for, is to be a tour guide. You know what I mean? It's just GORUCK's way of doing it is, under ruck with coupons, doing exercises and whatnot on the beach to really get you that feel for Normandy and everything. It's pretty awesome.
So speaking of some people doing all the events, this year for the 75th anniversary, what events did GORUCK run over there?
So we ran a Star Course, and then we had like I think we ran a Star Course, then we had like a day break to get ready for the two toughs and the light. So what we did was we ran one tough, we call it the Utah tough. So we started at Utah Beach, and some of the key points that we hit was we went to St. Mary Glees, we went to St. Marie du Mont. We were walking on the roads and the farm fields that were the drop zones for the paratroopers. We went to Le Frere Bridge, which was one of the bridges that right next to a drop zone. There's a this bridge went back and forth for a couple of days. The 82nd was fighting over it, and at the actual bridge, there's a giant monument, an Iron Mike statue, and not to go too much into Iron Mike statues, but like there's 3 Iron Mikes that I know of in this world, and I might be wrong. I'll probably have to go and re-Google this and check it out, but 2 of them are here at Fort Bragg, and 1 of them was over there at Le Frere Bridge. And Iron Mike is like the paratrooper, the full garb uniform. It's this giant statue, and it's called Iron Mike. But anyway, so one's in downtown Fayetteville at the Airborne Special Operations Museum. One's right in the middle of Fort Bragg, and then the other one's at Le Frere Bridge. So it's so cool to I got pictures next to all 3 of these things, these Iron Mikes and everything. It's the consummate paratrooper from that time. It's just super awesome. And then St. Mary Glees was the first town liberated on D-Day. So that's the town the 82nd landed, and they came in, and the town went back and forth and everything like that. But at the end of the day, the Americans, it was the first town liberated by the 82nd Airborne Division. And that's also the church that sits in the middle of St. Mary Glees. It has the giant steeple. and one of the paratroopers, actually his parachute got caught on the steeple, and his name was John Steele. And basically what happened was he landed, his parachute got caught up on the steeple, so he was still suspended above the earth. And he ended up playing dead, hoping that the Germans wouldn't like shoot him or take him prisoner, but they ended up taking him prisoner and everything like that, and he ended up getting released. So the cool thing is, like, the town of St. Mary Glees, like, all throughout the year, they have, and it's not on that corner, but it's on one of the corners of steeples, they have a parachute with a paratrooper like replica on the side of the chapel. So that's super cool. And we went to St. Marie du Mont, which is one of the smaller towns close to Utah Beach. That the 101st, that was one of their objectives. There's a memorial to Dick Winters, who is he ended up being the company commander for Easy Company, the 506 101st Airborne Division of Band of Brothers fame. And then we got kind of close to Breakcourt Manor, so that was where there was some German artillery guns that were there. They were raining fire on Utah Beach, and that's also in Band of Brothers, and that's where at that time Lieutenant Winters took a bunch of men and did a textbook raid to take out those guns so that they weren't shelling the shit out of the American forces coming onto Utah Beach. And then, we walked around some of the farm fields and we pointed out some of the drop zones and everything like that. I ended up going long on my tough. Surprise. And so it was like, we started like 5 in the morning or something like that. I think we ended at like 7. So it was like a good 14-hour tough. And I think I don't remember the distance off the top of my head, but we definitely covered a good bit of ground for that tough. So then the next day we did the Omaha tough. So that's where we, focused on the events that happened on Omaha Beach. And then we also went to Point du Hoc, right? Which was where the Rangers, scaled the cliffs and everything. And were there to take out the big guns that were there. And I got to tell you, man, like, one of the greatest things about Normandy is that, like, so GORUCK has these themed events, right? So I'll give you an example. Like, we just back in beginning April, I ran one of the Baton Death March events in Chicago, beginning of April. Great group of folks up there in Chicago. I built the class off of one of the books that I read about the Baton Death March, and I tried explaining it as much as I could. You had to kind of visualize it and everything like that in your head, everything that I was explaining about what these guys went through with the Baton Death March, right? And GORUCK has, like, especially this year, we got I just ran a Battle Ramadi Tough and Light up in Newport, Rhode Island, which is absolutely gorgeous area. And, I'm trying to explain and paint the picture of what happened, and it can be kind of hard, you know what I mean? Because you're not on the ground. But at Normandy, like, I'm literally standing on the beach at the Vierville exit, and I'm explaining everything that the guys that were storming the beaches, the Allied forces, the Americans, like, hey, this is what they were up against. Hey, look, it's low tide. That's when they came. It's low tide right now. So they had all these obstacles and everything like that. Hey, look at this exit. Do you guys see how, like, the terrain just, like, completely lifts up? You got literally cliffs. You got, all up on these cliffs where all these fighting positions and artillery positions and mortar positions. And then, oh, look, we're standing next to a bunker. And where are the holes in the bunker? They're on the side because they're shooting people not just out the beach, but down the beach. Painting the picture's not too hard because a lot of that stuff is still there. You know what I mean? And you cannot beat that for an event. You're trying to explain things, and you're explaining it right there on the ground, and painting that picture for these guys. And it's not too hard to conceptualize. And, I can see the participants looking around with their head, and they're like, wow. And then, the segue into my absolute most favorite moment of this last that Omaha Tough. So we were at the Vierville exit, and I was explaining, and at that point we had integrated the light class. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we had integrated the light class with the tough class, and I was explaining everything to these guys. And one of the shadows is like, "Hey, there's one of the World War II veterans is right around the corner, and you know, you think we could get him over to come talk to the class?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So we ended up bringing him down. So prior to him bringing him down, I explained everything that went on at the Vierville exit, the fighting positions, the interlocking fields of fire, the machine guns, the whole gamut and everything like that. So then I introduced myself to this veteran who stormed the beaches right there where I was explaining everything. And I was like, "Hey," I explained, GORUCK and everything like that, real quick snippet. And he was like, "Oh, it's awesome." And I was like, "Hey, if you don't mind, would you like to say a couple words to the class?" He's like, "Well, how much time do I got?" And I'm like, "You got all the time in the world. Like, like you can take as much time as you want, sir." And so he came down, and the best part was that he explained everything almost exactly how I explained it, to the participants. He absolutely verified everything that I was telling these guys. And this is coming from a guy that actually stormed the beaches. You know what I mean? I just read a bunch of books about Normandy and had been there a bunch of times and went to some museums and everything like that. But like hearing it firsthand from this guy, I was just like, wow, like you can't beat that. You just cannot beat that whatsoever when it comes to these events. You know what I mean? And that was awesome. So continuing on, there's this trail that I know exists because I've ran a couple events at Normandy, and basically it connects the Vierville exit on Omaha Beach, and it connects it to Pointe du Hoc, and it's like 5 miles. And with the sheer amount of traffic driving around, because there's not too many roads around Omaha Beach to get around. But we wanted for the Omaha Tough because it was every day it got closer to actual June 6th D-Day. There was just more and more traffic. So we're like, we got to take this trail. And we had like 150 people to take on this trail. And I was like, well, every year I've taken like 75 to 100. It hasn't been that issue. And one year we did it, in the dark with no headlamps. I was like, doing it during the day with an integrated tough and light class is just too easy. So we took them on this trail, and like, again, you're not going to walk that trail unless you're walking the area or you're on that trail with somebody that's been there before, that's walked that trail. You know what I mean? And to have the participants walk that trail was so awesome because like in the farmers' fields, they still have some of the gun emplacements. They just grow the crops around the gun emplacements and everything. So you'd be walking on the trail, and the trail hugs the cliffside for most of it and everything. And like, you could see like, we'd be walking. I'd be like, "Hey, look right there." And like a couple participants behind me, and they'd be looking in the like, the thicket or whatever, in the brush. And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "That's a fighting position. Look, see?" And I'd push a couple leaves back or whatever. And they're like, "Whoa." And you can see like the fighting position that's still there and everything. And then, so awesome of a trail. And after to back up, I had told the Star Course about that trail. I'm like, "Hey, you can use it if you want. It's pretty overgrown," because I walked that as part of my recon prior to the Star Course. And I was like, "You can use it if you want. It might save you time, it might not, but it's up to you." And some people were like not very happy with taking that trail, and then there's a lot of people that are like, "That was like the coolest thing that I got to do during the Star Course." And then, obviously with the tough and the integrated light, we're like, that was like super cool to walk on that trail and everything like that. Cause you're covering ground that like tour buses ain't going anywhere near that trail. You know what I mean? And, so then we popped out on, Pointe du Hoc and everything. And I mean, Pointe du Hoc is where the Rangers scaled the cliffs. They came in via boat, and they started throwing up these ladders and these grappling hooks and everything like that. And these guys had to climb ladders and climb up ropes while they're getting shot at from above in order to get over the cliff, in order to get to the high ground to take out these gun batteries and everything like that had the German artillery and whatnot. and and, and just to be at one of the places where the Rangers really made their name, it's just awesome to be there. And when you're there, it's just Point Hawk and Omaha Beach and Utah Beach are such massive places. But when you're at Point Hawk and you see like guys in uniform that actually are U.S. Army Rangers right now walking around, you're like, yeah, this is so awesome. And you see the reenactors walking around, and you see the tourists, and then oh, by the way, I just rolled up with like 150 GRTs with rucksacks and carrying sandbags and everything like that. It was such an awesome feel, to be able to check out these areas and see everything. I mean, it was just so cool. You know what I mean? There was never a moment during any of these events that I was like, oh man, it's almost time to end, or anything like that. It was like, man, I almost wanted to just keep going, just to walk around until we just all quit and passed out.
Tour buses aren't taking trails like that. The minimum barrier, to entry on a tour bus is some money, but the minimum barrier for a GORUCK Light or a GORUCK Tough event, I mean, you have to be in some form of shape. So I can see how you're able to get into areas that are a bit off the beaten path, so to speak, that you wouldn't see at a tour bus. But that sounds,
yeah. I mean, it was awesome. It really was, man. And then like throw in there that like there's like multiple cadre, and like anybody would tell you, when there's multiple cadre at an event, like I mean, we absolutely feed off each other. So when I got Mocha, Heath, DS, Ragnar, you know what I mean? It's just so much fun, whenever we stop at these certain places, and like each one of us cadre had like a lead for a certain event, and mine was the Utah Tough. I was a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division, so like I grew up in the Army knowing about St. Mary Glees and Le Frere Bridge and everything like that. So like I was like, that's mine. That's my event. And then Heath had Omaha Beach, and he did a freaking phenomenal job, explaining, the German defenses and on Omaha Beach. And then you had DS. DS was in charge of the light, which was integrated and everything like that. But like, he started that light class off like it was a heavy. You know what I mean? And I was like, and I was just standing there, and I wanted to tap him on the shoulder and be like, I'm like, DS, hey bro, it's a light, man. You know what I mean? But like, it was just, it's, one of the other cool things about working with the other cadre and everything like that is like you learn, you learn new and different, ways of doing things, and anytime I work with these other cadre and I see how they work, I'm like, wow, that's really good. I'm gonna take that, and this is the first time I worked with DS. I mean, that dude's a phenomenal cadre. He's a great dude. And, I definitely picked up on some stuff. I'm like, man, this guy's awesome, and then I look over and I'm like, Heath is doing something. I'm like, man, that's awesome too. You know what I mean? And then like Ragnar's over there. I'm like, it was just like all positivity at all times. You know what I mean? It was just so awesome to work with the caliber of cadre that were there. And it's just an awesome thing. One thing before I forget that I wanted to start it off with. So the Utah Beach and the Omaha Beach Toughs, right? So they started at 5 a.m. So if you know anything about the English, and they started on the beach. So if you know anything about the English Channel, it's very cold. So like we started like, other than the admin stuff, like the roster, going through that and the admin safety rules and everything. And then, I would take lead and I would do like a sand table, like on the beach. So I would like draw out like the battlefield, and I would explain, everything that was going on for that particular area. So when I was on Utah Beach, I really focused on Utah Beach and the airborne, invasion. And I talked about Omaha Beach. And then when I was on Omaha Beach, I really focused the sand table on the events that transpired at Omaha Beach and Point Hawk, but I also covered Utah Beach and St. Mary. So if you got two different versions of the Cadre Dan sand table, which I'm marginally famous for all the Normandy events for doing. And then after that, man, we put everybody in the Higgins boats, which the Higgins boats were the boats that carried the carried the soldiers from the bigger craft actually onto the beach. Last name Higgins, guy that came up the boat from Louisiana, that Eisenhower said was absolute number one reason why we won the war, or won on D-Day, was because of Higgins's ingenuity in designing these boats. But we would put these guys in their little Higgins boats in the English Channel, and they're in that water like right when the sun came up. And then we'd have these guys, for both the Utah Tough and the Omaha Tough, we had them storming the beach for a couple hours, right exactly at the time that the Allied forces would be hitting the beach. So that was like super cool. Like, and instead of just going in the water at 3 in the afternoon or something like that, that's how we started the Utah Beach Tough, and that's how we started the Omaha Beach Tough. Was Higgins boats in the water, back and forth, up and down the beach. Low crawls, high crawls, carrying casualties, coupons, and everything like that. It was super great way to start the event and prime everything for how the rest of the event was going to unfold.
Yeah, what a way to start the events. And you mentioned that they started at 5 in the morning, so you were really playing off of the people want daylight for their GORUCK Tough events.
Yeah, man, because headquarters, they like I said, man, headquarters put a lot of bandwidth against these Normandy events and everything like that, and headquarters really was like, okay, let's get the most bang for our buck for these guys, and best way to do it. This is how we think this should look. Star course, a tough at Utah Beach, focusing on Utah Beach and focusing on the airborne stuff. A tough at Omaha Beach, focusing on Omaha Beach and the Rangers at Point to Hawk. And we'll integrate a light at some point in there for that Omaha Beach class. And it was just great, man. You know what I mean? Just phenomenal.
And it sounds like there was enough time between the events that people could really take part in all of them if they wanted to, without it being a serious beatdown on the body like an HTL or a back-to-back tough might be.
Yeah, man. And again, that's a testament to headquarters' planning, man. When I saw how the initial layout of the events was, I looked at it, I thought about it, and I was like, that's it right there. All these years I've been thinking about how to do it, you know what I mean? And, talking to the other cadre and trying to come up with our genius ways, about how to do it. I was like, that's it right there. That's perfect. I don't know if there's another way to do it where you can cover as much ground during the day and see all the things that you could see if you did all 3 events. And even if, and there are plenty of folks that didn't do all 3 events, and you don't have to go over there and do all 3 events. There's people just came over and just did the star course. There's people who just did the star course in the light, which was cool. You know what I mean? And there's people that did, just the toughs. They didn't come over there for the star course, and that's great, man, because if you did both toughs, remember, because the light was integrated for that Omaha tough. If you did both toughs and the star course, like the amount of information we fire hosed and the amount of things you were able to see and grasp as far as Normandy was phenomenal. I don't think there's any more way in that span of time that we could fit any more shit. You know what I mean? There's just no way. Headquarters did a phenomenal job on that. They really did. I'm going to go ahead and toot their horn for them because they really did a great job.
And it sounds like there are a lot of people that traveled over there for those events. So you mentioned there was roughly, 150 people once the light integrated into the tough. What were the other numbers like?
Yeah, so the star course was, and I might get the star course numbers. I might jack them up, but there was definitely over 100. It had to been I think it was 150, 200. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a ton of people at Utah Beach with rucksacks, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of people. And then I'm pretty sure for both toughs we had 75, and I think for the Omaha we had a little bit more than the Utah tough. And then the light we had, I think 50 to 60. So we were up there real close to 150 when we integrated everybody. And man, anybody that's ever done a tough with 150 people, and I've done that I want to say twice. I've done it in San Francisco, and I did it for the GRT reunion a couple years back. I swore up and down I would never, ever, ever, ever do that again because it's just a nightmare, herding that many hurting that many people. But for this, man, it worked out great. Everybody was super motivated and moving and excited and really like it wasn't that bad. And we had the right amount of cadre interspersed, so it wasn't really an issue, moving these folks, around. And it was great numbers, man. And we had plenty of people that came from the United States, and that's awesome, man. But one of the other great things about Normandy is linking up with our European brothers and sisters over there, because GORUCK it's slow to take form over. It just takes time. We got a great GRT community over there. We had one of the ruck clubs, the Munich Ruck Club, man. I mean, these guys came up in like full force. Great group of folks. Few of them have done the Bastogne, Belgium event that I ran over there a couple years ago, which was, the same premise with the Normandy event. Like doing an event on the battlefield is just money. And, it's so cool to link up with our European brothers and sisters over there and talk to them and hang out. And, because Normandy wasn't just the United States of America invading the beaches. I mean, this was like, this was a team effort. This was the Canadians. This was the British. This was the French with the resistance on the ground. You had the Americans, and you had some other Allied forces out there helping too. So the Allied forces stormed the beaches and, cracked the Atlantic Wall and stormed Fortress Europe, right? And then you have the GORUCK classes, and we had we had a real good smattering of folks from a lot of the countries in Europe. We had I think for the Star Course, we had Mocha was like, all right, let's start with the different countries we got. And we had guys from Sweden and Germany and, Italy. We had some folks from France and everything. So it was just super cool to have all these, our GRT European community out there too. It's great to see those guys. I definitely recognize some of the folks from the HTLs in the past and everything. And it's, great to catch up. And, we absolutely appreciate their support for the, for the GORUCK brand and everything over there in Europe. And we're working on it, man. We're working on, getting over there and running more events and everything like that. Me, Ragnar, the other cadre, Heath, DS, Mocha, we spent a lot of time, talking to the European community over there, and then talking amongst ourselves, about coming over there to Europe and running events in Europe is something I've talked to Jason about for years. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I personally don't have the bandwidth and time to put into conceptualizing a vision and a giant plan on how to do it. I'm more like when it comes to the action guy, I want an event in Bastogne. Can we make it happen? Yes, absolutely. All right, cool. I'm the cadre for it. You know what I mean? Or putting my injects for how the Normandy events and everything like that. And then Star Courses are the great thing about the Star Course is I think the Star Courses will take hold over there in Europe. I think that once we get we got a Star Course over there in London, I think at the end of August, and a lot of the folks that did the Toughs didn't know about the Star Course for London, so hopefully we'll see them sign up for the Star Course over there, and hopefully it starts taking hold, man, because we run a Star Course in London, and then we go down to Munich, and then we go to Paris, and then we start branching out over there, and then maybe hitting some other doing some other Toughs and lights over there, maybe a couple heavies in the different areas and locations and whatnot. I mean, it's going to happen. It just takes time, So super awesome to link up with the European community over there and their ruck clubs. Great group of folks.
Yeah, I mean, the ruck clubs over there, they're awesome. Follow a couple of them on Instagram. I mean, they're getting out there all the time, posting some amazing pictures, and it's really cool to see. And, and like you said at the beginning of this, it's tough, right? Because GORUCK's based in the United States, all the cadre over here in the United States, and so to run events, you have to, throw people across the ocean to get them over there for events. It's not like you can just I mean, some locations you can almost just drive down the road if you need another cadre, pull them out
Yeah.
of a nearby city or a small plane ride away. But for everything over there, it's a little bit of a bigger endeavor.
Yeah, one of the it's kind of funny. I just remember while you're talking, like years ago, like I remember me, Jason, my wife, I think Sarkis was sitting there, and it was either right after the first Normandy event I ran there, but you know, we were sitting back there in my backyard next to my pool, drinking some Bud Heavies, and like after probably like the fourth or fifth one, it's just like the trek, when we came up with the trek. It usually takes a couple beers to get the brain power flowing, and so we were gonna do like planes, trains, and automobiles. Where like we were gonna run like a heavy in Paris, and then like a tough in like Amsterdam, and then like a light in Berlin, spread out like over a week. You know what I mean? And like figure out like how to do the maybe the fly, you had to fly to one event, or like take a train all the way through, and figure out the hotels, and like throw this package out to the folks, be like, hey, we want to run these 3 events, here's the hotels that we recommend staying at, and here's like the trains, these are the ones you got to get on and everything, and oh, by the way, we're going to run these GORUCK events here at this time and everything. And it just, I mean, it never came to fruition. I still think it's a great idea. It's just, again, those things are coming. It just takes time for us to get over there and get cemented. You know what I mean? I mean, the way GORUCK's going and everything like that, like, who knows? Like, maybe Cadre Dan's the guy to be over there to run GORUCK Europe, and I'm living in like, in Munich, Germany or something like that. You know what I mean? Which I would totally do after I retire. It'd be so awesome. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, and I mean that would just be a ton of fun, like the GORUCK tour guide service over there.
Yeah.
And it seems like with the most recent GORUCK reunion event, I mean, I know they've done GORUCK reunion for a number of years, but the most recent one, I mean, it was more of a destination event where they had Ruck Club leader Ruck a certain day. They had a Ruck out of headquarters where they got donuts. They had all these things on the front end and the back end of the event to kind of make it more of an overall experience.
Yeah.
And so maybe after running a couple of those, you can, put together what you've learned and turn your big grand HTL ideas into an overall experience over in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, and the other cool thing about the Normandy event, so we all's well that ends well. I heard that a few times from Jason. I'm pretty sure this old dude named Shakespeare came up with that. And so what I mean by that is like the after party. And like the cadre, we stayed in this chateau that was in between like Carrington and Cherbourg. And it was this beautiful chateau that this UK couple was, they basically run it as a bed and breakfast, and they're restoring it at the same time. And I got to tell you, these folks that put us up at there, I mean, phenomenal, great people. Chateau Montevision, great place. It's on my Facebook page. I'm on it, but either way, so beautiful chateau. We stayed there, all the cadre and everything. It was great. So we ran the after party out of it, and we had it catered, and we had a big giant bonfire, bunch of beer, picnic tables, and everything like that. So after the light was finished, like the after party started like an hour or 2 hours after the light finished, and everybody was invited. Like, if you did the star course, either the toughs, the light, did one of them, all of them, whatever you were there. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, wasn't standing there at the front door holding an alpha or holding a roster. It was so cool to have that, because like being able to like, talk to everybody that did the events and be like, hey, what did you think? Was this good? Was it bad? And like all I got was all positive feedback about the events and everything like that. And then, obviously being able to hang out with everybody and like, drink some beers and stare at Ranger TV and everything, and being in that atmosphere, this beautiful giant chateau in the background. I'm standing next to this gigantic bonfire, drinking beer, talking to a couple of the participants that there were, one of them specifically was a policeman in Paris, France. Like, you can't freaking beat it, man. It was phenomenal, and really good time to have that after party, at the chateau. And and the other two HTLs, we ran after parties there too. The Normandy after parties are like my favorite after parties because again, you get all walks of life, and you get a really good smattering of the international community, our GRT brothers and sisters in Europe, and then the Americans that flew across the pond and came over for the events and everything like that. It's such a cool vibe and a cool atmosphere.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like you said, I mean, the Star Course, the Toughs, the Lights, I mean, you get just a ton of different types of people who did all four of them, people who did just the light. I mean, it sounds like it'd be quite the group to hang out with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, a great group of folks. It was, great. And then it's almost like itself in a reunion because there's people that came to the event I haven't seen in a couple years. And I'm like, hey, you know what I mean? What's going on? It's like just being able to hang on and then walk around and check out everything and do it all together. GORUCK style is just just phenomenal, man. And then just actually being there, just there's something about the area, man. Like as soon as you get to the area, you're like, wow, there's something about it, man. And I don't think anybody walked away from the events or walked around and didn't get something out of it. You know what I mean? It's impossible. There's just something about that area that it's just so magnifying. It's so beautiful. It just puts everything into perspective being there. And you're like, wow, these guys stormed the beaches here and they were up against this. Wow, these guys were on boats and climbed ladders to get up this. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? It's just so awesome to see what with these guys, sacrificing what they did for us 75 years ago. I mean, those guys are like they're called the greatest generation for a reason. And if you're wondering why go to Normandy and stand at the Vierville exit on Omaha Beach, looking at the exit with the beach to your back at high tide. And if you can't figure out why they're not the greatest generation at that point, I don't know what to tell you.
GORUCK's been coming back to Normandy year after year. I can imagine most likely that they'll be back next year. Are there any plans for that yet, or is it just kind of they'll probably be back because GORUCK goes to Normandy?
Yeah, I mean, like one of my favorite quotes from Jason, other than his Shakespeare quote and his African proverbs he likes to throw at me every once in a while. It's he cracks me up with that shit. But like we were all around St. Miraglise, and we were getting ready to take the team photo with the church in the background, with the steeple, with the replica John Steele. That's like the team photo. It's so awesome. You know what I mean? And Jason, like, he's already a loud dude just like me. And he was like, hey, if you like freedom, smile. It's like everybody like starts smiling and cracking up and everything. And like, we're absolutely going to be constantly going back to Normandy. I mean, Jason like is all about going, and running events in Normandy and everything like that. I mean, we were running events there for years. It's almost like the Bragg Heavy. It's going to happen every year. It's going to be different variations and stuff like that. Like some of the things that we kicked around and look, man, none of this is like written. None of this is written in stone. This is just things we talked about. We've had some really good ideas, man. Like we wanted to run an event in England to simulate the train up and then like get on a ferry and go across Cherbourg and then like go to the beaches and then have an event there. Like that would be pretty cool. We were looking at running, like bringing a Jedburgh event and running it over there and really talking about the, our roots of, special forces are from that area, you know, with the OSS running around, you know, working with the French resistance. And I mean, there's just so many that would be an awesome thing, you know, to cover. We haven't even cracked, like, you know, the other three beaches, you know, Gould, Juno, and Sword that are over there. And all the things that the Canadians and the British went through that are over there. Those beaches they got their own stories and the battles that, you know, took place in that area. The little small battle. When I mean little small battles, I mean like each beach had its own, you know, different flavor for what happened there and everything. And I mean, there's the possibilities of running events over there are literally endless. We've ran, you know, plenty of toughs, plenty of lights, plenty of, you know, some heavies. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we run an HTL there next year. Maybe we run a heavy, tough light. You know what I mean? There's just get into the alphabet soup of GORUCK events. I mean, all of us cadre have talked about like different ways and different things and everything like that. But like, if I was a betting man, the Star Course would be back there in some toughs. And like I said, man, headquarters did a phenomenal job on coming up with the scheme and maneuver for the events this year. And it worked out great, you know, and then like, we're realistic, man. Like, you know, there's obviously an R behind the 75th anniversary. There's not going to be that many people. I would guesstimate, you know, they're going to be there for the 76th anniversary. But even the years that I went over there, when it was like the 70th and the 71st, man, there's still tons of people. There's still tons of like, you know, actual veterans. Unfortunately, like I said, they're moving on. They're not, you know, there's not too many of them left anymore. And every year we lose more and more. But Normandy's always going to have people going there. It's always going to have, you know, we'll probably always run events there. Plenty of opportunities to go over there. You know, if it doesn't work out next year, then we got the year after that and everything. It's always awesome. It's going to work out.
Yeah, you guys have no shortage of awesome ideas, or so it sounds like from this end of the headphones.
Yeah, no, I'm super confident in headquarters' ability to project, you know, a good scheme of maneuver over in Normandy. I mean, they've done it doing it for years, man. They're going to continue to do awesome, you know, with through the next years. And you know, obviously, man, like Jason's been over there and seen Normandy events. Ragnar's been over there and seen Normandy events. Mocha, you know, like the heavy hitters down there with the events and everything have seen how events run over there. The real world experience. That it's not just a dot on the map, you know, of putting an event here or there or whatever, you know. It's like Jason in you know, when anytime he talks about DC, you know, like there's always going to be a gazillion events in DC. It's DC. I mean, it's the nation's capital. It's a great place to run GORUCK events. I could run events in DC every year with and do it like 1,000 different ways. You know what I mean? And the same thing with Normandy. You know, so it'll always work out.
That's phenomenal, because I'm guessing there are a number of people listening who are maybe a little bit jealous that they didn't get to, you know, go to this year. So they'll be looking for next year. Yeah,
I would definitely. I'm pretty confident in stating that, like, you know, it's just being, you know, just one of the cadre and not one of the, you know, one of the guys down at headquarters, you know, cranking out the 2020 schedule and everything like that. I'm pretty confident Normandy's going to be on the map, and we're going to continue to go there. I mean, we've gone there like I'm pretty sure we've been there every year. There might have been like a year within the past, you know, 7 or 8 that we've been, or 9 that we've been running events that we may not have gone there because like the participation or the maybe the buzz wasn't out there or whatever. And honestly, man, like it's not transparent to us that, like, you know, we are asking a lot of folks to, you know, come over to Normandy. I mean, the airfare, it's not cheap. You know, getting an Airbnb over there during that time frame, it's not cheap. But man, if you want to take a vacation, that's, you know, you just don't want to sit on a beach and get fat and drink, you know, drinks with umbrellas in them. Like that's the way to go. You know what I mean? Come to Normandy, GORUCK events. And then obviously, man, like one of the funny things is, like, you know, some of some married couples come over there and everything like that. And, the guys go out and they want to do the events. Some of the wives do too, absolutely, and everything like that. So, I remember a couple wives, they just didn't want to do the events for whatever reason, everything like that. And I remember telling the guys, I'm like, so now that your wife was, this happened at the Star Course. I was like, so now that your wives are here supporting you for the Star Course, you guys are going to take your wives down to Paris and go shopping and go around Paris, right? Like, and I was like nodding my head up and down, and like the wives were smiling. I'm like, it's time for you to go and do the right thing for your wives and everything like that. There's so much other shit over there to see. You know what I mean? Like, you could plan like a super awesome vacation coming over there, banging out a couple events in Normandy, and then going to Paris or going to Amsterdam or going wherever over there. Even the small towns over there up in northern France are absolutely gorgeous. You got, Caen, you got Rhone, you got Saint Mont Michel down to the, Cherbourg. There's plenty of stuff to do over there. You're not going to have a problem. Your biggest problem is figuring out, like, trying to see a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time. You're not going to have a problem figuring out what to do over there.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're going to be bored for a single minute.
No. Some people worry about the jet lag and everything like that. Like, look, man, I got on the airplane. The night before I got on the airplane, like, I just stayed up real late, got a couple hours of sleep, went up, got on the airplane, crashed, woke up. I was with Jason and Emily and Heath and Nick, and, we went – we took the most scenic route from Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport to the Chateau in Cherbourg. We stopped off in like Versailles for a little bit, and we're outside the Palace of Versailles. And we got a picture, and we stopped at a couple of little French towns and everything like that, and that was before we even got to the Chateau. It was just so cool to do, like, and see different things and everything like that. And that, even that night, we hadn't even been in Normandy for like 24 hours yet. And me and the other cadre were just so amped up and so excited to be there and to be a part of this event and everything like that, man. We were out route reconning that night. I didn't get to bed until like 1 a.m. We were being awake for like 24 hours. The adrenaline high of being awake and being in that area, even though it was my fourth time there, was enough to keep my ass awake and not be all jet lagged and, whatever. And the GRTs are in great shape, so you can mitigate that risk of the jet lag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're used to toughs starting at 9 at night. I mean, the toughs started at 5 in the morning, so you guys flip the hours for them anyways. It's like the toughs started at the normal time.
And then flying back, I kind of did the same thing, and I came back here. I landed in Raleigh at 3:00. I drove to my house. Hour and a half, got to my house, grabbed my guns and my stuff, and went and was at the Bragg Firearms Day events with Chewy and Heath all that weekend. You know what I mean? It was just phenomenal. So if I'm, as old as I am, if I'm able to bang all this stuff out, and plenty of the participants are in a lot better shape than me, they'll be fine with the jet lag.
Yeah, and you'll be so excited anyways.
Yeah. Easy day. So, yeah, man, Normandy, phenomenally awesome. Recommend it to anybody and all to come over there and, stand on the ground that the greatest generation stormed the beaches and did what they had to do to rid the world of tyranny.
Thank you so much for listening to the All Day Ruckoff podcast. This has been episode number 109, and thank you, Cadre Dan, for being on. I know you listen to this podcast, so just know that I really appreciate you taking the time, and this was just a lot of fun to talk about. If you want links to anything that we talked about during this episode, you can always check out the show notes at alldayruckoff.com/109. If you want to support the podcast, you can always leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or on our Facebook page. Just search for All Day Ruckoff. Those are truly, truly appreciated. And then if you want to support the podcast financially, you can always shop in the online store, alldayruckoff.com/store, or support through Patreon patreon.com/alldayruckoff, and there's a link to that in the show notes as well. I want to give a huge shout out to Bill for supporting on Patreon. Really, really appreciate it, man. And I just want you to know that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you next Thursday. As always, don't forget, attitude is everything. Keep yours positive, and drink hard, rock harder.